everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showing you the 5 cards that I created with the Pink and Main September 2019 card kit. This kit was fall themed. I'm going to quickly show you what comes in it. You get several sheets of colored cardstock. They are lightweight, so I did not use them for my card bases. I used them for card panels. The 2 white sheets are slightly heavier, so I did use those as card bases. You get 2 sheets of those craft label stickers. And then you get this pack of pattern paper that are all sweater patterns. You get the information card, 4 envelopes, I think. You get this leafy stencil. And then some of these tags, there's a few larger green and orange tags and then some smaller cream tags. You get some brown rickrack, some orange twine, and leafy ribbon. And then you get these chunky metal charms, which I use on one of my cards, and I'll probably be hand delivering this card since it is very heavy with the charm attached to it. You get a pack of sequins and this stamp set, and I do really like the sentiments on this stamp set. Okay, so now I'm going to create card 1. I'm taking a stitch circle die from my stash and I'm going to die cut it from some of the maroon cardstock that came in the kit. I also cut down some of the craft cardstock to 5 by 5 inches. I will be creating a square card here. Now I'm taking a larger circle and I'm tracing it onto this craft panel. And that is because I want to create a wreath, and the circle kind of helps to outline the circular shape that I want to create with my leaves and acorn that I took from the stamp set. I am inking all of these images up with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm using that smaller maroon circle to also help me place my stamps, just to make sure that I'm not stamping them underneath the circle. And after making this card, I understood why people invest in the wreath builder template mechanism thing, because it's extremely difficult to create a circular shape with a few stamps. I think if I had some smaller leaves, it would have been easier, but I was kind of limited on the amount that I had, and they were quite large. So you can see it's a very wonky circle here, but that's okay. I will fill out this circle more. So in the end, it doesn't really look like a circle, but I still think it looks like a wreath. Here I'm just going to stamp out a few of the last leaves here. You can see on the right bottom corner, I overlapped a few leaves, but I invested too much time into this already that I wasn't about to start over. So I'm going to try to use my coloring to distract from the overlap. And here I'm taking it out of the MISTI so I can add some gold embossing powder over the black. And for the most part, the gold covered the black completely. However, there were a few areas that had dried. So once I heat set this, there are some black specks, which I'm not a fan of. So if I were to do that again, I would probably stamp with Versamark ink. Here I am just stamping out a few extra leaves to try to balance that circle out a little bit more. And Desiree from Include a Thank You has actually created this card before me. At the time I made this, I hadn't seen her video for some reason, so I didn't notice it until after I had everything filmed. So I will give credit to her since she had the idea first, and I will have her video linked down below if you want to see how hers turned out. It's very similar to mine. But now I'm going to stamp the sentiment onto my maroon circle, and here is mistake number 2. I did pour some gold embossing powder over this sentiment. I'm going to heat set it. And I chose the sentiment, "The leaves are falling and autumn is calling." So here I'm grabbing my heat tool and I'm going to heat set all of this gold powder. Okay, and when I go to emboss my sentiment, I ran my finger over the leaf and I had to redo it. There is no going around that. Here you can see. This happens a lot. I'm sure it happens to you guys, but it's fine. I just recut it and restamped it. So now I'm going to color in all my little leaves. I chose colored pencils, which I don't normally go for colored pencils, but I love the look on craft cardstock. I am using Prisma-colored pencils. I chose some greens, oranges, yellows, and reds to color in all of my leaves. And for most of my leaves, I have 2 shades of the same color. Right now I'm working on a red leaf, so I first laid down my darker red and then I went over it with my lighter red. And that's primarily how I color even with my Copics. So I color the exact same way from my darkest to my lightest. On some of these leaves, I incorporate 3 colors. So on one of the leaves, I go from red to orange to yellow. And I love fall colors. So I really enjoyed this process of coloring. I'm just going to show you a few of the images. Since I did stick to the same colors here, I decided to show you each colored leaf, and then off camera I'll finish the rest. I think these green ones are my favorite. Most of the time when I make fall cards, I skip green because it looks too summery to me, but I think mixed in with the orange, yellow, and red, the green really pops. So here's an example where I go from dark red to medium red to orange to yellow. And I really like how that looks. So here it is, all finished. And now I'm taking some orange Nuvo drops. And I think this is where a mistake 3 is. I feel like I went overboard with the Nuvo drops. And that happens a lot. I never know when to stop with Nuvo drops, but I've seen so many pretty wreaths with Nuvo drops incorporated, so that's what I was going for. I'm adding yellow ones now, as if the orange was not enough. Oh, and I guess I added green. So here you can obviously see that there's just a lot going on, especially since my wreath is a little bit wonky. And I thought in order to hide those Nuvo drops, I would just add sequins on top. And I actually didn't add any glue. I just added the sequins right on top of the Nuvo drops. They will act as a glue. And I thought that this might redeem the wreath. Since there was gold embossing everywhere, I thought the gold sequins from the sequin pack would tie some more gold into the panel, but I honestly feel that this ruins it even more. I mean, it's just my personal preference. I feel like some people might look at this and really prefer it with the sequins. But let me know, what do you guys think, with or without? I feel like with all the coloring I did, I should have just left it alone, because I think in total the entire coloring took about 30 to 45 minutes, so yeah. Alright, so I went ahead and popped the circle sentiment right on top of my wreath. I'm going to add ATG tape behind the craft panel and add that to my 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 white Nina card base, and that will complete card number 1. Okay, for card 2, I cut down some of the maroon pattern paper to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and now I'm taking one of the sweater layering stamps, and I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark ink and stamp it right over this pattern paper. The stamp set's kind of cool because it does line up with the pattern paper that came in the kit. And there's another sweater layering stamp that you can combine with this more speckled knit pattern to create a solid sweater background. But I decided just to use the speckled one since the pattern background is already there from the paper. So this is just going to add some gold knitted areas, I guess. I'm going to heat set that, and you can see the gold looks very pretty against the maroon color. And I think that just adds a little bit of interest to an otherwise pretty plain background. So now I'm going to take one of the tags that came in the kit, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment Autumn Greetings. I am stamping it at an angle to make sure that it fits properly. And I'm going to sprinkle some gold embossing powder over that and then heat set it. And the bottom of my tag is kind of bare, so I'm going to take the reverse side of that maroon sweater pattern paper and add that to the bottom of my tag. I wanted to incorporate some more gold, so I'm taking some gold foiled cardstock from my stash, and I'm just going to add a strip of that right above my yellow panel at the bottom of my tag. Okay, now I'm going to make this tag cute using the brown rickrack that came in the kit. I'm just going to string that through the top. And I think that looks adorable. And I'm going to secure that rickrack a little bit more by creating a orange twine bow right at the knot. And this also just makes it look more cute. And then I'm going to take one of the charms after I snip off the ends here, and I'm going to glue the charm right underneath the orange twine bow. I kind of cheated. I didn't know how to attach the charm while I created the bow, so I just will glue it right underneath the orange knot. Going to trim off some more of that rickrack, and I felt like my tag wasn't standing out enough on that very busy background, so I'm going to trim down some of this craft cardstock. It did come in the kit, and I think it's a nice neutral and it goes with the rickrack. I'm going to flip that over, add some ATG tape behind that, and then I'll just trim off the excess. I'm going to add ATG tape to the tag, and then for the ribbon I'm going to add some 3-in-1 glue. It's a nice strong glue I like adding to more bulkier items. I actually attached my charm with the 3-in-1 as well. And I did kind of offset that tag more towards the right, and I did angle it just to add some interest. And now I'm going to matte this panel with some brown cardstock. I felt like the white card base was too white, and I had a lot of warm colors on this card, and I felt like the white was very not matching, I guess. So I took some cream cardstock to matte behind the brown, and that ties in with the color of the tag as well. And then I just added some ATG tape behind the cream panel and added that to my white card base. And now just to finish the card, I'm going to take the gold sequins from the sequin pack and just add a few of those around my tag. And I do like how that turned out. Just going to add one more, and that's going to complete card number 2. I really like this one and that cute little charm. Here's a close-up. Okay, card 3 is actually a holiday card, and I took some of the pattern paper and I'm drawing on the back of it using a mechanical pencil. I'm trying to sketch out the shape of a mitten. And I'm drawing very lightly, so you can't really see what I'm sketching, but I will zoom in so you can see what it looks like. And then I'm going to take my scissors and fussy cut that mitten out. And you can obviously use a mitten die if you have one. I don't. And for most of the images I want, if they're basic shapes, I'm able to sketch them out and cut it out with my scissors. So luckily I was able to do that with these mittens. Now in order to create the other mitten, I wanted it to be the exact same size and shape, so I'm going to flip it around so that the thumb is in the opposite direction, and then I'm going to trace it onto the same paper, and then I'll just fussy cut that out again with my scissors, and that's going to create the exact same mitten, except it's going to create a left-handed mitten. And I love that pattern paper with the chevron. I decided to add that knitted heart that came in the stamp set. I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark ink and stamp it in the center of both of my mittens. It's just going to add a cute touch to these mittens. I will sprinkle some white embossing powder over those hearts and heat set it. And it was at this point that I felt my mittens looked more like oven mitts. So in order to make them look a little bit more like mittens, I'm going to take some white cardstock. I'm going to curve the top and add that to the cuffs of my mittens. It's just going to add another color and hopefully make these mittens look more like mittens. I'm going to attach the white with my art glitter glue, flip the mitten over and trim off the excess, and then I'll just do the same for the other mitten. Okay, and to give my mittens a little bit more dimension, I'm taking some Potter's Clay brown ink and an ink dauber, and I'm going around the edges of the red pattern paper just to help them stand out a bit. Off camera, I die cut some holly leaves out of some green cardstock, and to give them a little bit more dimension, I'm adding some bamboo leaves with an ink dauber, and I'm going to attach these holly leaves to both of my mittens just to make them a little bit more festive. I also die cut the same die from some red cardstock to cut out the berries. And I'll just cut those out with my scissors and attach them right beside my holly leaves. Alright, so those are my mittens. I'm going to take some of the craft pattern paper and attach it to another square card base that is cut to 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. The craft pattern paper was cut to 5 by 5 inches. And now I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, and I wish I had stamped and embossed the sentiment before I attached it to my card base, since it did warp a little bit. So I did make sure that my heat tool was good and hot before I added it on top of this craft panel. I did white heat embossed cozy greetings on the top left corner. Sorry, right, other left, I guess. And now I thought it would be cute to attach my mittens with some red and white twine. You could create fall mittens and use the orange and white twine that came in the kit. But I thought making this a festive card would be really cute, since sweaters obviously also can be worn in the winter time. Alright, so for one of the mittens, I'm going to attach it with some ATG tape, and then on the other mitten, I'm going to pop it up with some foam tape. I did attach my red and white twine with some Scotch tape on the back of my mittens. I'm going to remove that backing on the foam tape and pop it right over my left-handed mitten. And then I'm going to take my art glitter glue, and just to secure the twine, I created sort of a squiggly line, and I'm just going to add my twine right on top of that, and that's going to secure it. I'll trim off the excess twine, and that will complete card number 3. This one's my favorite. I love how those mittens turned out. For card 4, I'm going to be creating a rainbow sweater. So I'm taking one of the sweater layering images from the stamp set, and I'm going to ink this up several times in rainbow colors to create, like I said, a rainbow sweater. So you can use the second part of the layering sweater stamp to create the entire background. Here you can see there's white specks. Those are the areas that would be stamped with the other stamp that came in the stamp set. However, I was a little bit worried lining the second image up, and I didn't want to ruin this panel since it did take about 10 minutes to stamp out. So instead, I'm going to color in all those white areas with some Copic markers that matched almost exactly with the colored inks that I'm using to ink up this background. And I will have all the extra supplies listed in my coordinating blog post as well as my video description. So here you can see I chose some Copic markers that are very similar to the inks I used, and I'm just filling in those white areas with my markers. Like I said, you could use the second layer of the sweater stamp to do this instead. So off camera I did the rest. It's pretty self-explanatory here. I think I just show you the yellow row, and then I do the rest off camera. And this purple color, I think I used VO9, is almost exactly the same as the purple ink that I used. And I did use Memento Dewdrops for all of my inking. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp out the heart, the knitted heart again. Using my Versamark ink, I'm going to first stamp out the middle heart, add some white embossing powder over that, and now I can see where to stamp the 2 hearts on either side of that middle heart. I did emboss it with white embossing powder, but if I were to do this again, I think I would ink those hearts up with black and clear heat emboss them, because I think they would better stand out against this colorful background, but I do like how the white looks. Alright, so now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I chose sweater weather is better weather. I'm going to white heat emboss that sentiment onto some black cardstock. And now I'm taking my heat tool and I will just heat set everything at once. And then off camera, I'm going to trim that sweater weather sentiment to a strip. And originally I thought I wanted a strip to go across the whole panel, but that ended up covering my blue and purple inked area, and I wanted more of that to be peeking through. So I am going to trim off the edges there, just that I'm left with the rectangular sentiment. And I'll just add some ATG tape behind that sentiment and attach it to my rainbow panel. I'm going to add some ATG tape behind my panel and mat it behind or in front of some black cardstock, and then I'll attach the black panel onto my white card base. Now this card was fairly simple, so I wanted to add a little bit of bling to it. I'm taking some white and iridescent sequins from my stash, and I'm just going to scatter a few of those around this panel. I noticed that whenever I use sequins, I tend to scatter them in a diagonal. I'm not sure why, I guess it's more pleasing to my eye. I did also add a few silver ones, and that's it. That's card number 4. Alright, for card 5, I'm going to be using the stencil that came in the kit. I'm going to secure it to the back of this cream panel. I'm using some Scotch tape to tape the cream panel to the back of this stencil. I'm also going to add some tape onto the stencil to tack it onto my glass craft mat. I find the biggest problem I have with stencils is that they shift while I'm inking them up, so I made sure to tack this one down. I am inking these leaves up with my Memento Dewdrop inks. I chose the same colors that I did for card 1, so orange, yellow, green, and red. For most of these leaves, I add 2 colors. So for my red leaves, I add orange at the top. For my orange and green leaves, I add yellow at the top. And for my yellow leaves, I add just a little bit of orange at the bottom of them. And luckily, I was able to ink up each individual leaf with my finger daubers. It just allowed me to have better control over where to add the ink, so I'm very happy with how this background turned out. I'm usually not a stencil person, but I did enjoy inking up this background. So while I ink this up, I'm going to talk about this kit. So this is the first kit I've gotten from Pink & Main that I'm not super excited about. I normally love making fall cards, but I just wasn't very inspired by this month's kit. And I was kind of disappointed that there weren't any dies included. I know they included a bunch of other stuff, but I just felt like they didn't amount to the value of the kit. So let me know what you guys think of this month's kit. I still really enjoyed working with it. I do love the sentiments from the stamp set as well as the stencil. I just don't know if it was worth the money. But I am going to give Pink & Main another month just because I have really been enjoying using their kits, and I did like the last 2 kits that have come in, so I'm going to give it another month and see how I like it. So unfortunately, I am not going to use that entire inked up panel. I'm just going to cut a section out of it using a stitch square die I had in my stash. Now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I'm taking one of those craft stickers and I'm going to stamp "So or Ever So Thankful for You." I'm also going to stamp out an acorn in a leaf using my Versamark ink, and then I'll just pour some gold embossing powder over that. I love the look of craft and gold together, and gold and fall also I feel coordinate together, so I think I use gold embossing powder on every card. And this time I'm going to ink up the leaf and the acorn using my Copic markers. For the leaf, I inked the center with orange, and then I went over the entire leaf with my yellow marker. For the acorn, I'm going to color the top of the acorn darker than the bottom. I used 2 shades of brown there. And now I'm going to assemble my card. I'm taking this leaf that I die cut from some gold foiled cardstock. I felt like the stenciled background needed something, so I did pull that leaf from my stash. If I can find it, I will try to link it below. Originally, I thought I wanted that brown cardstock, but I thought the yellow was very bright and cheerful, so I went with that color to matte everything behind. I'm going to add foam tape behind my square panel and attach that towards the top. And then for my sticker, I used so much heat on it and I was messing around with it, so I decided to add some glue behind it just to make sure that it was extra sticky. And I'm going to finish this card off with the gold sequins from the sequin pack again. And I'll just scatter a few of those again in a diagonal and attach them with my art glitter glue. Okay, once those sequins are secure, I'm going to flip this yellow panel over, add some ATG tape, and attach that to my 110-pound white Neenah card base. That is cut to an A2 size. And that will complete card number 5. I love the gold accents on this card. And unfortunately, I forgot to film the showcase. I thought I might be doing 10 cards with this kit, but I decided not to, and I have since given a few of these cards away. Let me know which card was your favorite. If you want to know some more information about a specific card, you can head over to my blog post, which I will have linked down below. I want to quickly thank everyone who has recently subscribed to my channel. I got an overwhelmingly large amount of positivity on my last 2 videos, and it's so exciting to me that you guys like my videos. So I just want to thank everyone and all my new subscribers, and I'll see you next time. Bye!